Good morning, everyone. Today is the 17th of April. It is 9:01. This is a regularly scheduled town council meeting. All council members are present, as well as the town manager, town attorney, and town clerk. If you please rise for invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
We meet today to focus on the very best that can happen for our lives. Show us what we need to do this day. Give us strength physically, mentally, and emotionally. Help us to successfully meet every aspect of our lives. We ask to be inspired with creative and dynamic ideas and trust we are guided so that we can meet our lives with joy and confidence. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Before I ask for approval of the final agenda, there's one item that has pulled itself, they pulled it from the agenda. It's the public hearing, ordinance 23-07, the rezoning of 2545 and 2555 Estero Boulevard. Is there anyone in the audience today that came to speak at that public hearing? Seeing none, okay. So we'll be pulling that off the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
So moved.
I'll second. All those in favor signify, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next, we have public comment. Madam Clerk,
I have nobody signed up.
is there anyone in the audience that chooses to speak? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Local achievements and recognitions. Vice Mayor Adderholt.
Oh, I just wanted to briefly thank the CFO's office for coming tomorrow here at Diamond Head for the Insurance Village. There'll be about 10 to 12 companies here. They'll have a representative as well as the insurance regulators from the CFO's office of the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation. I encourage people to come. If you're working with an attorney and or an adjuster, I would encourage you to consult with them before you come and either have them join you or, again, just have that consultation. The representatives of the companies, I'm told, are there to make decisions and try to help people. They've been empowered. This is what from villages that have occurred around Southwest Florida. I wanted to thank the district director. I've been in touch with him for the last month, encouraging him to have one here in Fort Myers Beach, and they were very responsive in doing that. I would also say at over 6 months since the hurricane, if your claim has not been paid, that is not normal, and it is a very serious situation. And so if you are concerned about how you've been treated by your insurance company, I encourage you to come to the Insurance Village and file a complaint with the regulators at the conference, because the more complaints that an individual company gets, the potential likelihood that they would potentially have a market conduct exam against their claims paying procedures could occur. So the complaint process does have an impact, and certainly at a minimum it can get you in touch with your insurance company, particularly if they're not represented at the village tomorrow. But again, I hope that goes well. Hope people come. Obviously, it's from 9 to 5, so that 9 to 10 hour, I'm sure, is going to be pretty crowded. So if you're going to kind of think about your time, maybe come a little bit later in the day where it's not so crowded. That's all I've got, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Veach?
Yeah, once again, where's that going to be at?
It's here at Diamond Head.
Right here. Okay.
Yep.
And you said from 9 to 5?
9 to 5.
Okay.
I think the list of insurance companies is posted on Councilor King's Facebook page, which I think you posted this morning. And it's also on the town's website under town advisories.
Yeah, I'll just shout out because I know that the LIPA site, they recently put up post-Ian pictures, and looking at the immediately post-Ian pictures and the recent ones, I just want to have a shout out for the crews that are out in the mangroves cleaning up the debris, because it's extraordinary what they've pulled out of there. It really is looking so much better.
Councilor Woodson?
Couple of things. So another Steadfast restaurant did their opening or initial opening, the Whale, this weekend. So hats off to them for getting back out there. And I know they have plans in the works for their building and getting permits and all that kind of thing. So that was really great to see. And also a huge thank you to Matt Caldwell. He was our speaker at the Chamber Lunch last Thursday, and really tried to set the item, give something to look at the future, how to get there, where to go to find information. Had some really great questions. I think it was the largest turnout that the council has had, I think, since Byron was here. Or the chamber has had, rather, since Byron was here. But it was a great meeting, and thank you to him.
Anything else?
Not yet.
Counselor King?
A couple things. Since we last met as a council, I attended the reopening of Mound House along with Councilors Veach and Woodson. And I wanted to thank Mom's Restaurant for the cinnamon rolls. They were delicious. And Mojo's Coffee Cafe for the coffee and the bagels. Also, I thought it was a great idea that our interim town manager, Keith, held a staff meeting, I think, the next day there. I thought that was a great idea. Also, to touch on what Councilor Woodson said about the chamber luncheon with Mount Caldwell, one of the key takeaways for me was the refund rebate of your property taxes is been done as of April 3rd, but going forward, if you're not able to use the property you have for its intended purposes, please get in touch with that office to let them know, because that will impact your 2023 appraisal.
Very good. Anything else?
That's it.
Everyone has so graciously covered all the items I had, so thank you for doing that. Next, we have advisory committees, items, reports, and appointments. Murph is here. Mr. Johnson?
Morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Town Manager, and Clerk. Murph got the band back together here and actually was able to hold a meeting on the 12th of April, and we wanted to give you
Now,
a quick...
Steve, we've got, nobody's actually said what the acronym stands for, and we have a new town manager sitting behind you, so you might want to say what MRF is for anybody who might be watching and for our new town manager.
Okay, as updated as of last year, it's Marine and Environmental Resource Task Force Advisory Board.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. First sheet I had provided is really just two recommendations came out of that meeting. The first was a recommendation to direct staff to complete remedial projects. As you know, advisory boards, well, as town council people as well, can't direct staff. We need to work with the town manager, and basically, maybe the executive summary here is there's 3 projects that have been worked on the last 2 years. One was a landscape and vegetation management ordinance, basically a modernization of the existing ordinance, and primarily the focus was on restricting invasive species. Not existing, but stopping people from actually planting them. The 2 newer council people obviously had not participated in that, but we have been up a number of times over the course of the last 2 years to discuss this with you. The second one is a tree ordinance, and that was actually, I think, spearheaded more by Councilperson Hasselfras, and that was pulled out of the existing landscape and vegetation management and as a standalone with some input that the council gave directly to the staff, environmental staff. And the third one is the South Florida Water Management District Landscape Irrigation and Water Shortage Model Ordinance. This was brought to us in 2020, and essentially it was the management district coming to Fort Myers Beach to remind us that we were the only ones in Lee County that did not implement the model ordinance. And this is just simply an ordinance that provides water restrictions when there's water restrictions required. So really, these 3 projects have been completely reviewed, and the input's been it's passed the or I should say it's been reviewed by the advisory board, and really is in a state where it just needs the language written for you to review. So it hasn't been done, and that was now that we're haven't met for 6 months. I think it's a matter of requesting your priority, where it ranks in your priority to have environmental staff begin to work on this again.
Steve, not to interrupt you, but that one really caught my eye because I was surprised that we didn't have something and that we were the only ones that didn't implement it. On that same path, Lee County has a fire ban in place now. Do we know off the top of your head if we have a fire restriction ordinance, or I don't know if we do or we don't?
I do not know, Mayor.
It'd be something that would kind of tie into that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a segue into
I'm not aware of it to the extent that we do. I do know that the state of Florida, depending upon the conditions in any particular area, will announce or publicize that it's a fire hazard area, and to prohibit under state rules any open burns or other than prescribed burns, and limiting the ability of individuals to take action that might cause an unintended fire.
I'm just curious if it, with the water and the fire, if it has any, if Lee County has it and the state has it, is there a need for the town to have it? Or, I mean, if Lee County says there's a water ban, or if there's a fire, does the town necessarily need to have an ordinance in place?
Generally speaking, unless the county ordinance specifically states that it's intended to apply to municipalities under the Lee County Charter, it would not necessarily operate in the city unless the town were to acknowledge and take formal position that it would apply to the town of Fort Myers Beach.
I would think for our code enforcement authority that it probably would help if we did have such ordinances.
Okay. Good.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Well, that'll be a segue into the second page, but let me finish this first one. The second recommendation that came from the meeting was brought up by a resident advisory board member who had their sewers, had some issues with their sewers, and after uncovering it, they found out that it was, there was holes. It was cast iron, and basically sewage water was escaping from his sewers. So the request was whether or not that's something that, since they're county-owned, is there a way to investigate then the issue that potentially exists, that the older sewers are in fact polluting our waterways? And maybe the best way to approach that, since they are county-owned, I don't know if that's a recommendation from the town council, or if that's something that you would request that the advisory board attempt to follow up and find out what the hoops are that have to be jumped through.
I think for that one, it would be, for me, I know that there were some issues with some homeowners that have the same copper pipes going from the house to the street
Mm-hmm.
that have had issues and have had to have them replaced, but that's obviously not county.
Mhm.
So I don't know how we would be able to attack that from county, state, or county, municipal, and homeowner
Mhm.
level, but I think it's definitely worth looking into.
I remember Key West was basically mandating people go and replace that sewer line that goes from the house to the street, because they were getting a lot of leakage and they were measuring the effect on the water. So maybe there's an ordinance, maybe we can look at Key West's ordinance and see if that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I know there's been some patching, they find the hole and they patch it with the rest of the cast iron, but, if you don't, it might be a good idea if you're rebuilding your house to start there underground first, but.
We've,
certainly-
in the past, I've done an upper lateral project similar to that. Upper lateral meaning the privately owned portion of the sewer laterals, that upon a real estate transaction, you require certain things, termites and those sorts of things, require a scoping of that line to see if it's leaking at that time, and if it is, it would have to be replaced then. And that way, it's upon real estate sales, so ultimately, if somebody lives in their house 40 years, it doesn't get done, but typically that's a decent trigger point.
That's
with a lot of
I thought there was
things.
there were limits to what the municipality could put in a real estate transaction. It's like, I think there was a case, and maybe John can add to this there, where if the town wanted to put in something like explaining, I don't know, some ordinances we have, short-term rentals, whatever, that we're not allowed to mandate that that's in the real estate packet.
Yeah. Yes, we're, as a general rule, unless the town is a party to the contract and puts something into the contract, we can't mandate that third parties in any private transaction acknowledge or state that they're subject to. With that said, the I'm sorry, because I'm looking at the dripping water.
Right, just started.
That caught my attention. But to your point, everyone's on notice of both applicable state and local laws and regulations under general law.
Now, the case that Keith, the example that Keith put out, would we be allowed to do some of that, to say that in a turnover of ownership that certain actions have to be taken, like scope out a sewer line?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I would, as our town manager is handling other water utility issues right now, I would recommend that we have our utility director, who has a good relationship with Lee County, to discuss the sewer piece of this puzzle with Lee County and see if they could, I assume they came out after the storm to do an initial inspection, but to make sure that they come out and do a thorough inspection of their lines. I know it doesn't necessarily get to the home always, but at least they could examine the overall infrastructure to make sure there's no challenges. And that would certainly be something that I would think they would want to do. But I think your suggestion, Mr. Town Manager, could be a nice gradual way to implement some assurances that there's no additional leakage. But I'd be curious to hear what the county says about their system and whether they can detect leaks, how they with their inspection systems. Like, we'll look into that, Steve, because I think that's a legitimate, very legitimate concern.
And I think one place to maybe implement is when someone's rebuilding their house. I know no one wants to add extra expenses, but to rebuild a new house and hook it up to a leaky sewer line is not in the long-term interest of anybody.
Yeah, also, Vice Mayor, to your point, actually, I witnessed the county was actually blowing smoke into the sewer systems along Estero Boulevard. And I don't know if they're going down side streets, but, and looking for the puffs coming out. And actually, we saw a 4-inch cleanup, cleanup with the cover missing. As we walked a couple blocks later, we saw a bunch of smoke coming out of a cleanup, a clean-out. So maybe they have actually done that, but certainly not for private residences, I would guess.
Very good.
Well, it's safe to say that we're getting a second lesson of the aftermath of Ian here. I love the waterfall feature.
He's getting a towel to damper the noise,
Okay.
I thought it had a nice beat.
and it's coming down even more there. It's getting wetter and wetter. Whoopsie.
Shall I continue?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so jumping into the initiative guidance request, essentially we keep a list of initiatives that we work through at our meetings. The first three I just brought up, those were the top three that have sort of been sitting there. You can see that the status has sort of progressed, and those first three are remedial. So again, depending on what your input is on those, whether or not you want staff to continue to work on providing the language and the ordinances for those, I think one of the important parts of this is that during the rebuild, as people re-landscape, if those in fact ordinances were in place, you could prevent or you could help manage invasive vegetation, as well as the tree ordinance. But to continue on, the pop-up tent is up and running again. They're organizing dates as able. And a quick shout out to Beach Talk Radio listeners that contributed to the Amazon wish list that they put together to re-inventory the list, and really a lot of the heavy lifting was done by Jason Ingram at Mingaritas, who had contributed quite a bit to get the pop-up tent going again. Dark Skies, the model ordinance that we had considered is still pending. The MRF pamphlet, it's based on really finances, that's not a priority. And last, really, is just maybe a little bit of good news, is that the Big Carlos Bridge Rubble project that we were sort of staying abreast of is actually complete. The county has supported the request to use that bridge rubble to create a new artificial reef off of Fort Myers Beach. So that's, I think, terrific news.
Steve, do you remember how far that reef is from shore?
You know what? I don't. I think what they were looking at was the Edison Reef, because they already had permitted ledge there to actually place it on. You know, they won't just put it anywhere because it'll sink down into the sediments. They have to put it on some ledge rock, and they had extra space around that. And that's about, 15 miles or so. It's in 45 feet of water, the Edison Reef. But I think that's where it's going.
So it'll be significant distance from shore then.
No, 15 miles or so. It's not too bad.
I mean, we're not going to run into it when we're swimming, I guess.
No, I don't think so. No, especially you. I don't know. You're usually right next to the shore, Jay, staying away from the sharks. So also, is anything we're missing here? There's other things that had come up during the meeting that we didn't add, such as I know that rebuilding the accesses that had really all received severe scouring, whether or not that's something we might be able to opine on as to maybe a serpentine walkway to avoid that straight perpendicular access. I know there's dunes that are considered to be put at the end of that to sort of protect that. I don't know if just the environmental staff is working on that, or but that's one issue. We know that's outstanding. And also the other thing that had come up during the meeting really was the post-storm damage that's occurred. I don't know if you're aware of some of the issues that came up with the mangroves. I mean, that's a big one, actually. I think those folks will be seeing the magistrate this week. But some of the the activities are going on the beach right now that aren't permitted, with regards to box blading and shaping and doing things for private residences. We'd actually had hoped to have the town take a closer look at the permitting for that as well, as they do the rebuilds.
Steve, the town in the past has participated in a tree giveaway program, and as we attempt to revegetate our island, given what we've all been through, I'm wondering, it's not just a question for you, but also for our town manager and for our tidal basin people. Are there FEMA funds available for us to sort of do a tree giveaway or native vegetation that could be disseminated to homeowners, and as we try to revegetate an island that's been heavily devastated? Is that a piece of the puzzle that's ever come up in any of the conversations?
Not that I recall, other than the berm, vegetation on the berm. But as far as trees go, I don't know of a program through FEMA for that. But there are other grant programs to Arbor Day Foundation, others like that can offer grants to help us do that, or even some of the paper companies. I don't know down here if there's a lot of that or not, a lot of forestry industry, but many times you can get trees through native trees through the paper companies.
Yeah, ours is typically Arbor Day is the tree giveaway. Yeah.
Okay, and forgive me, what's that date?
I don't know. I don't know when Easter is.
National Arbor Day has a different date than Florida Arbor Day. National Arbor Day is May, a date in May, and I think the Florida Arbor Day is more in January.
Okay. Was Murph involved in that program before? Do you remember, Steve?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, this
Okay.
past year we gave away, I think they were orange geigers and maybe a mahogany or something like that. I forgot what the second one is, but yeah, absolutely.
And those were donated by?
Those were, yeah. They were, yeah.
Okay.
And I can't recall who actually donated them.
Okay.
Florida Arbor Day is April 28th this year.
Okay, very good.
28.
Oh, it's coming up.
Okay. Good. We'll get that on the calendar in case I'm asked again. Good. Any further guidance? Anything that should be on the advisory board's agenda?
And just so that we know, it's the same date for national.
Oh, good.
Man, got it wrong on both of them. 0-2.
Short-term attitude.
So,
That's right, short timer.
so since there really isn't a natural advisory board for this, Steve, if you guys, would you be interested in making recommendations for the, revegetation of the island, particularly the public areas, the right-of-ways, the Estero Boulevard, other areas where we can enhance our vegetation on this island? Have you thought about, I'm sure you have thought about it, knowing you, but is that a Murph function, do you think, or that could make recommendations? And
It would be, absolutely. I know Crab, that was sort of in their venue a little bit back in the day, but absolutely, yeah, we've got, master gardeners in the advisory board. Rose Larkin, she's always promoting native plants and is quite learned of the plants that should be planted, so we would absolutely love to do that as we build back.
it just looks pretty grim out there, and I don't know if I know that when the county gave the town a lump sum to maintain the right-of-ways on Estero Boulevard, and I don't think that was ever really fully expended. I think there was a few sort of trial areas done. Counselor Veach could maybe correct me on that, but it seems like there's still a substantial pot of reserve funding for vegetation on Estero, and it seems like this might be the time to kind of rethink that and maybe be a little bit more bold on that front. But just food for thought.
I see Joe's wheels spinning over there. It was between, I think, $800,000 and $850,000, somewhere in there, that the county gave to the town to handle the vegetation of Estero Boulevard.
And that included not
So
only
it's only
implementing it,
80,000,
but
I
it was,
No, it was
Yeah.
800,000.
It was 800 and
Yeah,
some
big
thousand,
chunk,
yeah.
but also to maintain it. So it was, it's kind of an open-ended
Yeah,
thing.
it was here's a check, you're on your own.
Yeah, there's a short section, I think, along Estero Boulevard where they planted 2 species of ground cover, and Bill might be able to
Yeah, I think in the
recall
north,
those.
you know, but it's not, I mean, people have ideas, you can put trees in it, but of course we have 8 inches of dirt there. But
But it would be nice to know what is left in that bucket. I don't know what account it ended up in, but just another thing you get to try to find.
Okay, we'll take it.
Anything else, Steve?
Nope, that's all.
Any other questions for Steve? Thanks, sir.
Thank you,
Thanks, Steve.
council. Yep.
Next, we got a presentation from Crowder Gall. Barton?
All right, while we wait on the projector to power up, I just want to, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Town Manager, Madam Clerk, everybody in the audience, thank you for, one, having us here on the island for the last 6 months. I hate that we were here under these circumstances, but your whole community has been really inviting to my company and all of our subcontractors, and it's been a real pleasure.
Barton, just before you go on, can you say your name for the record?
Oh, sorry. Barton Holmes. I'm a regional manager with Crowder Golf, the town's debris contractor. All right. Feels like I talk too long, I'm going to get wet, so we'll make this quick. So, at the request of the town manager and some of you guys, I'm here just to present a few data points on the collection effort as a whole. Kind of what we've done to date. Obviously, those numbers are constantly going up every day because we're still collecting. And then also a touch point on the Bay Oaks Recreation Complex site that we occupied for a number of months. Obviously, I know that a lot of you probably have a lot of questions, so feel free to jump in the middle or at the end. I'll try to answer to the best of my ability any questions that you guys may have.
We'll try to hold comments till the end, because I know you got a lot of stuff to cover, so.
It's
if we
really not
can.
that extensive.
Okay,
So.
all right.
All right, quick about Crowder Golf. We've been the town's debris contractor for a number of years. We've done a number of activations with you guys. They've mainly been relegated to fish kills and some smaller storms. This is definitely the largest activation that we've had with you guys. We're also the debris contractor for Neck of the Woods. I'll go ahead and touch on Bay Oaks.
Could you just, and I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but I just wanted, could you sort of set the table a little bit for folks who are watching?
Yeah,
In other words, how did you guys come
How are we
in,
in the mix?
and how are you funded?
Yeah.
Versus federal, state, county? Just kind of give us that backstory.
The state government and FEMA coming in and helping support that recovery effort. In our industry, FEMA is the checkbook. FEMA does not actually have any mechanical assets in place to pick up and remove debris. That is still left to private companies here in the United States. And so a lot of people refer to us as like the FEMA trucks rolling around picking up the debris on the right-of-way with the big grapple trucks. But we are a private company. Ultimately, we receive funds that start at FEMA and then trickle down to this is to have contracts that are pre-positioned or pre-bid, pre-procured on a blue sky day. And so those contracts are in place. So then the day that Lee County or Fort Myers Beach has a catastrophic debris-producing incident, then that locality can immediately issue a notice to proceed and activate and execute that contract with pricing, scopes of work, and everything like that already lined out. And that way, you don't have to worry about either an emergency procurement process or a standard, more drawn-out procurement. And again, through FEMA and every state, there are different criteria that's kind of the model for a lot of coastal communities.
So the town already had a contract in place with Crowder Golf?
Yes, sir, that's correct. The current contract actually was bid about 5 years ago.
And then how does that mesh with Lee County, the state, and the feds? Are we all in concert with each other, or how does it work?
Kind of. So the town had their own separate contract. And so, from my perspective, I think that was good foresight on the town because it allows you to be your own best advocate in terms of response and recovery. If you were to fall under, say, the county's contract, or if the state came in and assumed everything, you would be one cog in that wheel, but your decision-making, theoretically, you guys would be in the driver's seat with that and be able to control the operations of everything. Again, the city of Fort Myers has a separate contract. The village of Estero has a separate contract. The Bonita area, Lee County unincorporated has a separate contract, and we hold all of those as well. So it kind of is beneficial for the whole area just because we were present in all areas. There wasn't a lot of overlap between different companies and entities.
And so the town submits receipts to the county, who submits them to the state, who submits them to the Fed? Kind of walk me through that process.
So the process of obtained right-of-ways. The other part of that that is mandated by FEMA is a monitoring company, which is basically like an instant third-party audit to ensure the data collection side of what we're doing meets FEMA's reimbursement standards. And so all of that, when people talking about the tickets or the actual data, that is handled by Thompson Engineering, who is the town's debris monitor. And so again, separate contract for debris monitoring services was procured the same way that our debris contract for collection was. And so they've been on the ground, standing there observing what we're doing. That is the actual debris monitor, and they're ensuring that what our drivers are collecting from the right-of-way is eligible storm debris. They're doing GPS coordinates of like where that pile was, taking pictures of every pile, and again, those are all FEMA guidelines and standards for reimbursement.
I think what he was trying to get at is shortly after the storm, the state came in and assumed pretty much all of Lee County's contracts as far as funding, payment. So we weren't paying for it.
Gotcha.
submitting-
Yeah, and
I
so
think that's what we're trying to
the state and FDIM came in and they assumed financial obligation for the city of Sanibel and the town of Fort Myers Beach. The rest of Lee County, they did not. And so that was an interesting, obviously, it was a learning scenario for everybody, but again, kind of on the back end of it, we all got the job done as a team, and so that's what
That's
what
very
matters.
helpful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was what I was trying to understand.
Sorry, I didn't know
No,
which,
it's okay, 'cause-
which rabbit hole we're going down.
That's fine.
Nobody would ever think that collecting debris would be so logistically
No,
complex.
that's
but
good background, though, for your presentation.
we found a way to make it. So, real quick, back to Bay Oaks, and then we'll talk about storm numbers. This was an aerial shot taken October the 2nd with a drone that shows the state of the complex before any debris collecting activity started. Obviously, we were here on the island doing what we call the emergency push. We were working with search and right away, and so this is basically Bay Oaks untouched post-storm. By October 31st, we had started debris collection operations, and so this was probably 2 weeks in. And as you can see, one of the baseball fields in that back area where the playground and the tennis courts were, has debris on them. The smaller field that's closest to the now temporary town hall complex, we only used for vegetative debris, and we never had really expand, but the piles got higher. And then from November to the end of January, we continued to haul debris in and out of Bay Oaks By the first part of February, we stopped hauling any new material into that site to start the process of trying to remediate and get the debris out of there. Based on conversations that we had with the town, I think our line in the sand was the end of March to have that site clear.
Acres is that?
Uh,
I think the whole complex is like 12 or 13, but
Our footprint was less than 3.
really?
Yes, sir. It was not a whole lot, and again, for people that are nerdy on logistics like I am, the footprint of that site is obviously a lot smaller than we would typically want. Obviously, it's an island though, and green space is at a premium, and so the challenge logistically was to be able to haul in a lot of debris, but also at the same time, very quickly, landfill, which is way far north, while Lee County reopened Gulf Coast landfill. Once Gulf Coast reopened, that gave us a much closer site to be able to haul this stuff to its final destination, and that allowed, operations to pick up a little bit.
Can you solve one of the big mysteries, I think, on the island, maybe folklore-wise, is that what was the whole purpose of this exercise? In other words, did you have trucks that were smaller that picked it up initially and dumped it here, then larger trucks took it off? What else determined that came to Bay Oaks versus Lover's Key? Give us a little background on that.
So the math as to where debris went, whether it was Bay Oaks, because initially Bay Oaks was our only debris site on the island because the Big Carlos Pass Bridge was closed for the first month or so. So the Lover's Key site was not in play initially. So initially this was it. In terms of separation of the debris, you'll hear us refer to vegetative debris, which is obviously, leafy green material, logs, trees, sticks, things like that. We had 20 different sites across Lee County. Some were, commercial farms, use it as like a beneficial soil amendment application. There were a couple of commercial mulch sites in Lee County that also took it. They would in turn, grind it again and distribute it out to the community. The vast majority of what you see here is what we refer to as C&D, or construction and demolition debris. That was separated out, but the vast majority of it, through those piles and on the side of the road, we would segregate out white goods, so anything with Freon or refrigerant in it, and then also household hazardous waste, so anything that can't go in the landfill, paint cans, acetones, things like that. And then also e-waste, any large electronic goods, those were separated out as well. So then the circuit boards and everything on those can be recycled as well.
You did all that at Bay Oaks?
Transfer yard just off of Safety Drive near Summerlin. But it was all done fairly close to here,
And
yes,
then
sir.
once it came to Bay Oaks and was sorted, then it would go off island in a different truck?
Yes, sir. So if you can see the laser pointer, that truck right there is one of our debris trucks, one of our trucks that collects from the right-of-way. It's the one with the big grapple on it that actually picks it up off the ground. So those trucks would collect it from the right-of-way and then transfer it into the larger piles. Then debris would be mechanically compacted and reduced there in the site and then loaded up onto that truck, and that would be what would actually haul it to what we would refer to as the final disposal location or the landfill. And so, yeah, both of those things were ongoing at the same time.
That's very helpful, thank you.
Yes, sir. But again, I took the shot yesterday. We're only able to remediate the site when we're done with it to what it was when we assumed it. And so I know there's been a lot of discussion, either getting Bay Oaks back to the baseball complex or whatever the town may choose to do with it. We are limited by FEMA's standards in terms of what remediation efforts we can take here on the ground. Anything further than that, the town would definitely be eligible for funding for, but this is a Category A expense, and that would be under a Cat G, which is parks and recreation complexes and stuff like that. So basically, we did some great site work for whatever you guys want to use it for in the future.
Is the soil,
Initially, when this was all starting, I'll be candid, there was a lot going on a lot of different levels. We, Crowder Gulf, did not have control over that debris site when this all started. It was a secondary company that was here for a couple of days. And so we did not actually start peeling off material. So to my knowledge, is no baseline soil sample from that. Now, in my opinion, in our industry, that's not that big of a deal because you would want your baseline soil sample to be like a blue sky day soil sample to actually, what's really there. After the hurricane, obviously, there was, 6 inches to a foot of silt. Thompson Engineering, they have already taken the post soil sample, and I believe we're awaiting those results. And that panel is it's like a tri-panel of like 100 different VOCs and things like that. Again, I'm not an environmental engineer, but it's an extensive list of hydrocarbons and VOCs.
If those results come out and they're still troublesome, is that your responsibility then to remediate, or will that be a following company?
Yeah, no, if anything comes back outside of the prescribed limits by the state of Florida, then we would remediate that here, like right now while we're here. And again, typically, that's not an issue that happens. People think that down about a 2-foot layer of mulch on top of that ground, so then all the construction demolition debris wasn't actually sitting on the soil. And again, that's usually a pretty good effort. We typically don't have any soil samples come back outside of the limits, but we're awaiting those, and obviously, we'll adjust our target
Thank you.
depending on those. All right, so numbers, and this is as of yesterday. Obviously, we're continuing to haul, so these, change every day. But for these, when I refer to Fort Myers Beach, I'm going to include the town portion of it as well as the county maintained portion of Estero. And for those of you that don't know, the town obviously maintains the town roads, but the main boulevard of Estero Boulevard here on the island is technically county maintained. So I'm combining both of your numbers. Obviously, we did the cleanup for both of them, so it's easy to do. But you're looking at 28,714 loads of debris, and so that's vegetative debris, that's construction and demolition debris, that's the sand that was picked up and all of that, totaling over 1.1 million cubic yards of debris. Of that 1.1 million, we collected 55,000 cubic yards of dirty sand, screened that out, and obviously that sand came from a lot of different places, was mixed with a lot of different things to include soil, and so not all of that sand was able to be, used as its intended purpose, but I would say at least 25,000 yards of sand were put back into the scours and the beach access areas, as needed. And obviously, being a beach community, the quality of that sand, the color, what's in it, we tried to be sensitive to that and use that material in the most efficient and effective way possible, which a lot of times was filling scours and things like that. Obviously, the town has the emergency berm project ongoing. There'll be follow-up dredging projects as well to help reclaim some of the other lost sand to the beach. 215 tons of household hazardous waste. So that's paint, propane tanks, the nasty stuff that you can't just throw in a landfill. We had separate crews coming around to do that. That includes gasoline engines, so people's lawnmowers and riding lawnmowers, things like that. That would all be included in that. 7,132 white goods, so refrigerators, AC units, things like that. That number is just for the town because I can't segregate out just Estero from the county's numbers, but the county-wide, they had about 10,000 pieces of white goods, and I would venture to say that at least a third of them probably came from there. So you're looking at probably over 10,000 white goods picked off just Fort Myers Beach. And again, that's collected in 2.3 square miles. So Lee County proper did a little over 12 million cubic yards, but they also have like 1,200 square miles of area. You guys did over 1 million in just a very small footprint. So in terms of the density of the debris, I've never personally seen anything like this to include Mexico Beach during Michael. So
And you said this is still ongoing. What would you estimate, just if you could? Obviously, there's still houses that have to come down, and it may or may not fall in your total number bucket, but if you had to guess.
Right. It's really hard to guess. So far, well, let me do some math. As of the other day, 14. All right. As of the other day, there had been approximately 32 million cubic yards of debris collected in the state of Florida generated from Hurricane Ian. Of that 32 million, about 13 million of that came from Lee County. And then of that 13 million, a little over 1 came from the town of Fort Myers Beach. So again, for one community to have that lion's share of a number like that is significant.
Did you also have Sanibel? Did you-
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Do you know, I mean,
Sanibel's a different animal, and obviously different makeup. They collected a little over 2 million cubic yards of debris, but I would say 2/3 of that was vegetative debris, because obviously their canopy is a lot thicker over there. So while you're only separated by about 5 mile straight line distance, the effects of the storm and the collection effort couldn't have been more night and day. But yeah, no, they were a little over 2 million. But again, most of that was because of their canopy. Their construction and demolition number was much lower. So, any other questions about numbers or anything? I've got a cool spreadsheet right
You
there.
just said, I just want to make sure I clarify what you said. So you've been in this business for how long?
8 years.
And you say you've never seen the
The-
density of
The
debris? Is that the-
concentration of debris or destruction as I did here. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
And just another question. So what is the ultimate destination for this debris? I mean, the stuff you said, the construction debris, is that going to sit in a landfill forever, or is any of that incinerated? Or?
I believe Lee County, and again, it depends on where we take it. I believe Gulf Coast does have an incinerator program. I'm not sure what percentage of this is going through that, but typically, yes, sir. The vast majority of the not recyclable construction and demolition debris, its destination is a landfill. Yes, sir.
And are the white goods, are they easy to recycle, or are those?
Yeah, once you do the refrigerant mitigation in them, it's basically just scrap metal, and so those are baled and recycled that way. Yes, sir.
And the other question, are you seeing any problems with illegal dumping on the island?
Especially as the collection effort is on its tail end, and we're closing down debris sites and things like that. Actually, the day after we got the last load of debris out of Bay Oaks and started to slick it off, the next morning I rolled in there and there were 2 dump trailer loads of debris right in the middle of it. Frustrating at best, but we haven't had too many issues, and I think that's one. You guys have some good folks here in the town. The sheriff's office with Lee County obviously has a presence on the island, and I think ultimately people just want to do the right thing. So you have those issues everywhere, but we haven't had too many issues here.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Kind of expanding on my little bubble bullets, that this is kind of the drill down between the town numbers on the left, the county numbers on the right, and then the whole island totals in the bottom right. It's just a mirroring of the data, but drilled down by number of loads, cubic yardage, and things like that. And I can, these numbers are available in a lot of different places for the town, but if you guys want printed out copies of all of this, I can gladly provide them.
That would be great.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you could provide it with the town staff. So they could
Yeah, no,
get it out on
I'll
our
get
social
that to
media.
Keith and everybody when we finish up here.
And if you want to add a slide or two with your editorializing in terms of what you saw and how the magnitude based upon your experience, I think that's really interesting.
Absolutely. All right, in terms of data and information, that is all I have. I know there may be a few other questions or touch points in terms of our debris operation from this point forward. I'd be happy to
That was going to be my
to
first
answer
question.
those to the best of my ability in this forum. But yeah, no, again, I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come speak to you.
So just, I'll start just with a couple quick, because I'm guessing we all have the same question. The right-of-way debris cleanup, that has ended, correct? So I guess what I'm trying to say is you're no longer allowed to push your house out to the right-of-way to be picked up.
Right-of-way debris pickup has been extended by the state for the town of Fort Myers Beach at this point. So we still have trucks operating on the town streets to collect eligible storm debris that has been pushed to the right-of-way.
That has been pushed or will be pushed?
If it is there for the next 30 to 60 days, we don't have a firm cutoff yet, but if it is eligible storm debris on the right-of-way, then we are allowed to pick it up.
But
No,
did they,
regardless of when it got there.
Okay.
but I heard that they had to have already signed up for Ian debris cleanup.
So
That's a different answer.
the convoluted part or the different part of this activation is there are kind of two ongoing debris missions. One is the town's pre-event contract with us, and that is for right-of-way debris only. When the state came in, they created a private property, commercial property program that was a separate bid. We are a contractor in that. We have the rest of Lee County for Ian debris cleanup, so all the private property demolitions and everything like that. But Fort Myers Beach was given to another contractor. And so while that program is still ongoing, I can't really speak to their operation here on Fort Myers Beach in terms of the private property debris removal and the demolitions that are occurring here on the island.
So just to kind of clarify what you just said, you guys are still doing the right-of-way,
Yes,
but
sir.
the other company is doing the Ian debris cleanup.
Correct.
So this is kind of where I'm getting concerned. With the concrete part of the house, my understanding is if they come in, the other company tears down the house, hauls away the debris, but not the slab. The slab then gets broke up and pushed to the right-of-way. Is that on the other company or is that on you?
That's a gray area that we've had discussions about, and we will get it. If it's on the right of way, we will get it.
Okay, that leads me to my next question then. The right-of-way on Estero Boulevard, obviously that's not the town of Fort Myers Beach right-of-way.
Correct.
There's, as you know, plenty of concrete piles up and down Estero Boulevard. Is there any talks with the county as far as getting that picked up, or is that something that maybe we need to do from our side to try to help get that done?
I know just in general, obviously, there has been a lot of discussion about the county-maintained portion of Estero. To date, we have been instructed to not collect any more on Estero, but obviously, that may be a touch point that the town, if you see fit to have that discussion.
Yeah, well, I'm concerned because if I signed up for Ian debris cleanup and it gets picked up, but then the rest gets pushed to the right of way, it's kind of sitting there in limbo.
Correct, yeah, no, and again, we kind of have the phrase, every storm is different. Ian was definitely different. And, as all parties involved work through those challenges and logistics, I'm confident that a fix will be had.
Go ahead.
I want to clarify one additional point that the mayor was talking about, and we're very thankful for this, by the way. And you're making news this morning when you say that right-of-way pickup has been extended. Do we know if it's 30 or 60, or is it sort of, we're just kind of seeing how it goes, or
It's not my decision.
what are they telling you, though?
I have not seen a definitive end date. I will say that through the state, that the town's contract with us was actually slated to expire in a week, and that has been extended another 60 days. The town is currently in the process of procuring, a new debris contract, but the current one, under the current scopes of work, has been extended 60 days.
So you feel comfortable this morning saying that the right-of-way pickup has been extended 60 days?
Hopefully, again, it's all subject to change.
Yeah, I'm not trying
but-
to be, I'm just trying to get a sense of what you're comfortable
Yeah,
saying.
absolutely. And to kind of put it in perspective, in terms of like the amount of debris that's being removed from the right of way, October, November, kind of at the peak of our operation, we were removing between 25 and 28,000 cubic yards from the right-of-way a day, with over 37 trucks was our peak number here on the island. Today or yesterday, we removed 300 cubic yards from the right-of-way. And that number has stayed about that level for the past month and a half or so. So in terms of what we would refer to as the debris curve, we're definitely on the tail end of that. In terms of kind of the way we look at it, this is, whatever date that we are sunsetted on this, we just want to make sure that the right-of-way looks as good as possible, for the folks here.
And so if I'm on one of the side streets, not on Estero, but if I'm one of the side streets and there's still debris pushed out to the right-of-way, is there are you broken into districts? How does anybody?
We have it zoned out, but again, just because of the concentration and amount of what I will say eligible debris that we can pick up right now is much scarcer than it was.
Yeah.
We've amended our zones, but there's a method to the madness. And so what I would say to folks that might have debris in their yard, and they're like, what's been sitting there for 3 or 4 weeks or whatever, I would ask them to please continue to be patient. They have not been forgotten about. We will get it. And again, the method to our madness, it might be, a large pile of concrete. Well, we don't run, just because of logistical considerations, don't run those separate concrete trucks and workers every day. We run them like every 2 weeks once we've identified piles of concrete so we can be effective in our pickup. So it may be a different debris stream as to why, it's been sitting there, like, we collected it at your neighbor's house, we skipped yours or something like that.
Since you have this great forum to talk to the residents directly, do you have any advice for them in terms of how they put their debris in the right-of-way that makes it more likely that it'll be picked up quicker?
Yeah, I mean, just the
How you
same
want it
thing.
sorted, how you want it placed?
The town's done a good job at messaging, but it's kind of, echoing that, the same thing that's been said, separate your debris as much as possible between, the construction and demolition debris, any sort of vegetative debris that you have. We're not really seeing any more white goods or e-waste or anything like that out. But obviously, if they did, separate that out so we don't have to pick through it. The other thing is, especially here for people that are doing demolitions of their homes and pushing out the concrete pylons and piers and foundations and things like that, as if it is a sizable amount of concrete, to separate that as well. So then we can just do it quicker.
And because technology is so amazing, somebody is watching this, one of our residents, and he asks, the asphalt has been piled up at the end of Hercules. It was created when the stormwater pipes exploded. We put it in neat piles. Will it be picked up by the Crowder trucks or county when the sewer is fixed? Just asking if this is going to be picked up, or should we make arrangements?
So clean asphalt is kind of a different story. That is not within our scope of work, and so we didn't want to waste usable asphalt. And so we're working with Lee County DOT to see if there's an alternate use for that material.
Could you make a note and check on that particular location at the end of
Hercules.
Hercules?
Yep,
Yes,
got
that'd
it.
be great. Thank you very much.
And Barton, if you would, I just want you to expand a little bit, because our weekly calls with Director Guthrie, please, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's made it abundantly clear that if you hire as a homeowner a contractor to come and tear your house down, that it's the responsibility of the contractor to take that debris away and not push it to the right-of-way. And he's been pretty adamant about that.
Right, yeah.
Does that mean I have to stop?
Well, yeah, maybe we.
What's next?
Water got into the alarm system. Oh. Hold on. Anyone listening, we got the.
I think our mic's died too, so. Mr. Mayor, I have an answer for that whenever we reconvene.
I think our mics are down.
I think they're done.
They are.
Well, we have to evacuate. We'll take a recess until we can come back.
Can we get one of those grapple trucks to pick us up and?
It's gotta be from the water.
just as it was getting good.
What I want to do is get stuck and
Oh, it shorts it out.
torrential downpour with no exit.
Yeah.
Come on.
All right, we will call this meeting back to order. It is 10:12. We had a false alarm fire drill that went off here, so we apologize for the delay, but back to you, Mr. Barton.
Mr. Mayor, could you, I guess, just for everybody's benefit, repeat your question?
So our conversations weekly with
They're not on.
still no sound. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I think they did when the alarm went off.
Great.
Does the speaker still come through, Jacob? Does the sound still come through online? Just not in here.
Oh, we can just talk about it, can't we?
As long as everybody's okay with that. Can everybody hear us in there if we talk this loud? Okay, but the microphones work through the even the podium? Okay. All right. We will we'll continue on. But so my question was, with our conversations with Director Guthrie every week, there's concerns about if a private homeowner hires a contractor to remove their house or demolition their house, that it's their responsibility, not under the Crowder Golf's contract, to push it to the right of way to remove it. If they're tearing it down, they're supposed to get rid of it. Is that your understanding?
I could see how that would be a concern. What I would just caution citizens about is, if they hire a contractor privately to demolish their home, to check the scope of work in that contract that they have as to whether the removal of that debris is included in the price that they're paying. Obviously, on our end, with Thompson there on the ground, in the debris that is on the right of way, that is eligible storm debris to be picked up. Obviously, we will collect that. But yeah, no, definitely reiterate to homeowners that to check the contract between them and their demolition contractor to make sure that they are getting the full scope of services that they paid for.
Okay.
I have a
ahead.
couple questions. Same thing, kind of reconciling that conversation with this information. You said 60 days.
Again, I
Yeah,
haven't
to
seen
May.
that in writing. I know that our contract with the town was extended
Okay.
for those 60 days.
You said 60 days to May 28th, so I guess he was assuming March, April, May.
From that initial sunset of right-of-way collection, I think is where they got that number from.
Okay. He also told us to begin enforcement, or that we could begin enforcement on debris to the right of way. Now, Estero Boulevard, that has the extra dynamic there, but you're saying on the town streets, if it's to the side, we don't need to worry about any enforcement there until you're gone.
That would be my recommendation as well.
You've used the term eligible. Do we need to clarify what is eligible versus not eligible?
At this point, my encompassing definition of eligible debris that we will be able to pick up, it has to be debris that was generated from the storm. So what we have seen in a couple of cases is, as people, remodel their homes, refurnish their homes, some of the boxes and crates and things like that are generated from those activities they've put on the side of the road, and we are not able to collect those. So it has to be debris generated from the storm. It has to be on the town maintained right of way. And as long as those parameters are met, then obviously, we will get it. The other thing that causes issues, and we've talked about this a couple of times throughout the duration of this collection, is anything that's in plastic bags that you can't see. Our guys actually have to physically go and cut those open to see what's in them. So if they would not bag their debris, that would be great. But yeah, as long as it's debris generated from the storm and it's on the eligible town maintained right of way, then we're still able to get it.
Thank you.
Correct. Yeah. So the contracting mechanism for household waste collection is obviously ongoing, has been ongoing, and so there's that trade-off. Sometimes you have people's trash cans, bags on the side of the road. Our drivers try to use their best judgment I mean, you can tell what's household trash and what is, storm debris or, and a lot of what we saw early on was people as they were like gutting insulation from their houses, they would put that in those black contractor bags. That was pretty easy to identify. So.
I'm sorry, I don't want to be redundant, but I just want to be clear. There on Estero Boulevard, there's at least a dozen locations where there's significant piles of debris on the sidewalk itself, impacting people's ability to ride their bike,
Yes, sir.
walk, et cetera, drives them into the street. You say that's not your jurisdiction, that's a different company's jurisdiction?
No, so well, the right of way on Estero was in the purview of our scope of work for the county. It's just at this moment the county is not collecting any more debris from the right of way.
So does that mean these folks who have significant piles, I see a lot of concrete piles on the sidewalk itself, would Lee County then be responsible for the enforcement of making sure that whoever put it there removes it? Or it's awkward, obviously, with the town not controlling Estero Boulevard. How do we free our sidewalks of
Right.
those
Yeah. No,
piles?
it's definitely an interesting dynamic. Again, I don't want to speak outside of what my purview is, but I definitely think it would warrant a discussion because, again, like you said, the health and safety aspect of it.
I'll ask a lighter question, but I'm fascinated by these people in these debris trucks with the grapplers. Who are these people, and how do they live? Are they living temporarily? Where do they live, and where do they come from? And
So and again, kind of going back to an explanation of our industry as a whole, because a lot of people don't know anything about it, which is so it's always nice to be able to educate folks. Crowder Gulf specifically, we deal with obviously a network of subcontractors to help us come in and do the lion's share of this work, as does every other company in our industry. Each company kind of has their own exclusive subcontractors that work with them. And so the guys that are actually the Creel brothers that are here on Fort Myers Beach, we've been working with them for years. They're a family-owned and operated company out of Louisiana, just north of New Orleans, and some of the hardest working, best folks that you would ever meet in your life. These guys are staying and have stayed for the duration at the Three Oaks Industrial Complex off of Alico Road and 75. The county kind of gave us that parcel of land to stage all of our equipment and personnel initially. And so they've been living in fifth wheels and campers there at the Three Oaks site for the last 6 months. Working hard every day, coming back there, doing their thing, putting money back into the local economy and loving every minute of being here. So they're just great people.
And they don't actually own their individual trucks. Then they work for the subcontractor. Then?
Correct. Yeah. These gentlemen work for Creel Brothers. But again, family-owned company, great people, and you have stories like that, across, the guys that worked for us doing Sanibel. He's 35 years old, owns his own company, and doing very well, providing, for a host of people. So I mean, just a lot of neat small business stories to tell. Definitely.
And I'll just say, I talked to a couple who were their husband and wife came on one of the markets,
Mhm.
and at the beginning of the storm, they've already been on the road.
Yeah.
And I think it was just their life, traveling around with the truck, bringing people money. He was a little bit pushy with the restaurant, or you could be spending all that time at it, but he did a great job.
Yeah, we've asked you a lot of questions. Please don't see that as a reflection of our lack of appreciation.
Oh, no, not at all.
We're just trying. It's been Herculean, the effort that's been put forth for debris removal. We're thankful to the feds, the state, you all, the county, the town, obviously. And so, if you could convey to your team, I had a home torn across right from where I'm living now, and these folks, not only is it a skill to get the grappler to get it into the truck, but they've got power lines right there, and they're literally hitting the power lines, just tapping them as they go in. It's an amazing and the dust and the stuff that's ginned up when they do this. It's quite amazing. So we appreciate their efforts.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I will convey that.
One, I'm not sure if this really goes for everybody. So
no more deadline sign up.
That is my understanding, personally, but again, that, I'm not handling the state portion of the program here for the town. But that is my understanding. Yes, sir.
Yeah, they said it in. I'm just looking to make sure. They said the website itself was going to come down on Friday. But
Yeah, I believe the website will come down. They'll still have the hotline, so.
yeah, well, the website's still up, but yeah, you can no longer. Yeah, you no longer can sign up to be part of the program. Any other questions for Barton? Thank you, sir. And thank you for
Excellent.
all your hard work.
Again, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me and being able to speak here.
Next, we have approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next, we have the consent agenda. On that, we have a special event for the Mother's Day 5K run in Times Square. Resolution 23-34, the Lee County Beach Cleanup, and Resolution 23-35, the fee schedule amendment. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Oh, a C2? I missed a C2.
No, that's.
No. Yeah, that's the fee schedule.
So moved.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Consent agenda carries unanimously. Next, we had the public hearing for ordinance 2307 that was pulled. So that'll move us on to the administrative agenda. Resolution 23-36, Andrew Hyatt's employment agreement. A resolution of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving and authorizing the execution of the employee agreement between the town and Andrew Hyatt as town manager, attached as Exhibit A, authorize and directing the appropriate town officials to take all actions necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Mr. Town Manager, Mr. Town Attorney, you want to start this?
Sure, I'll kick it off. I appreciate all of council's support and my going back and forth with all of you individually to work out terms. And we came up with a contract that, and I can let Mr. Hyatt address it directly, but I believe we're all agreeable with. Then after, and that was late last week, after that, the point came up with regards to promoting longevity and the term of the contract being 1 year versus 2. So we've extended it, the terms, which is probably not in the draft that you have in your packet, to 2 years. And I spoke with Mr. Hyatt about that, and he was agreeable with that. Since then, there's been a couple of other edits that were made this weekend that probably are worthy of discussion. I'll pass that to John.
Very far out. Put in similar to the prior contract, it does give I'll write resignation. Pay out. Put in and standardized some of the notice provisions as far as Mr. Hyatt renegotiating and extending his contract, as well as tendering his resignation to both state 120 days out. to then give the town council an appropriate amount of time to, one, extend and negotiate, as the case may be, or to accept the resignation and look for a replacement.
Okay, before we talk to Mr. Hyatt, is there any questions for the town manager or for the town attorney?
I would just add that when I first looked at this language, I thought it may affect the 20-week severance, and after subsequent conversations, that's not the case. It really just deals with benefits and salaries from the date of stated resignation and accepted by council, so it doesn't affect severance.
Okay, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Town Manager, I was going to read this, but the internet is struggling here right now, but there was a section in there that I was just going to pull up on my phone that I can't pull up, that maybe you can pull up on your computer, under work hours, and it had to do with comp time, and I just wondered if you could elaborate a little bit on that for me. That seemed like a rather strange and unique provision that I had not seen before.
Do you have a section?
Are you talking about hours of work?
Yes, sir.
That's under 6.1.
Oh, thank you, John.
I'm hard copy myself here.
If you wish, I can try and address the question.
That's fine, John.
Vice Mayor.
It's on page 96.
You know, generally speaking, under Florida law, employees are classified either hourly or executive or you know, salaried positions. And as well as under federal law, obviously, if you're an hourly employee and you work over a certain number of hours, you're entitled to additional compensation, a time and a half, et cetera, holidays as specified. And similarly, if you are a salary employee and you work beyond a certain number of hours a week, then you know, you're entitled to additional compensatory time off. And that's that section of the employment agreement just recognizes that fact.
I guess my question then, John, is we use the term reasonable compensatory time. So this is, as we all know, and I'm hoping Andy knows this. I'm sure he does as a former town manager in numerous other places. This is not a 40-hour-a-week job, and so it's a potentially 24/7. And I guess so. Are you saying that we've created a dynamic where everything beyond 40 hours, he's going to have to account for it and have an offset that would become like vacation time? In other words, would one be accruing just a ton of vacation time by working more than 40 hours a week, or how does that practically work from a practical standpoint?
No, there's again, you know, in our for all our essentially for all department heads, and this is not it's actually contained within our employee handbook or manual. There's a calculation of what, you know, if you work beyond and excess the normal hours, then there's essentially what I would call or characterize as an equivalency chart, and you're entitled to that additional compensation in lieu of working, you know, time and a half or double time if you were an hourly employee by comparison.
So again, having been in public service at a high level, and I never always worked more than 40 hours a week, never accounted for any additional time to be somehow rewarded with additional vacation or comp time. Are you saying this is a possibility or a requirement?
It's a requirement, and to your point of working in government, it all depends upon where you are classified in your particular agency or state for purposes of that calculation. And again, this is not something new. It's done across the state for any salaried employee at a certain executive level.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
And since we're in that section, I was noticing that the last sentence of 5.2 seems like it'd be clear. It says, employee shall vest 25% per year up to 100. It just seems a little vague with 100. That should be either 100% or until fully vested.
or 100 years. Yeah, the
That'd be a
intent-
heck of investment.
yeah, the intent was 100%, yes.
Any other questions for the town attorney or town manager? Mr. Hyatt, you want to come on up so we can talk with you a little bit? I don't know if we're supposed to or not, but I guess because you obviously were made aware of a couple minor changes that both Keith and I had talked about this morning, and Keith had mentioned that he talked to the town attorney. Were those explained to you? Do you understand them?
Yes, pretty standard. If I may, Mayor, Vice Mayor, I followed a city manager one time that he kept up with his 15 minutes over, his 30-minute lunch versus his hour lunch, things like that. That's not my style. That'll be a rare thing that ever happens. It might be something I reach out to you and say, look, I'm going to be off tomorrow. I've got to leave early to run up to Jacksonville or something like that. It's not something I normally do. It's really basically mostly for other employees, for me to give them the opportunity where we don't pay overtime. We reduce that. That's not extra pay. It's not extra time off, and it's very rare. I'm not a clock watcher.
I'm very relieved. I'm guessing this was boilerplate language that was put in and not put in at your direction. I'm very relieved to have you say that and clarify it. So thank you, Andy.
I'll at least work 2 days a week. I assure you that.
Very good.
Wow.
But yes, Mayor, everything we've talked about and discussed, and pretty standard. My last contract was open-ended. There was no end date. I come here before you today. This is the last place I fully intend to ever work. So this is not something that I take lightly. I don't take it lightly. My responsibility, the challenge, a little daunting, but a lot of the heavy lifting's already been done. It really has. I mean, as I watched the video and saw the PowerPoint presentation, there's been hear you talk about things and talking to Keith and being brought up to speed where we are to this point. I haven't plugged in too much because obviously we need to get the contract approved. But once that happened, I'll start plugging in a little more with Keith and making things second nature and try to understand more.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hyatt on the contract?
I'll ask this question, Andy, just because I think the public is curious. Is it your intention or plan of attack to live on the island?
Absolutely. Everywhere I've been, I've always lived in the town. This is a little. We're in rare air for coming into a new community. Usually, there's more available. There's an opportunity that we found that's really kind of fell in our laps a little bit. So it's kind of like things that worked out. Absolutely, I think it's very important for me to be part of the fabric of the community. Interact at events, and I was going to run in the 5K, but I understand it's a 10K, so that's going to.
No, it's a 5K. Nice try. You're still in. You're still in. You're still in. It's a 5K. Yeah. No, but thank you for answering that question. I think that means a lot to our community.
And I think it means a lot to you too to have me available and us to interact and see each other and pass each other and just, hey, by the way, did you see that? And I was listening to a couple of comments that somebody texted you, and it's like, interesting that's. So I'm making some mental notes listening to you today.
And it's actually in the contract too. 6.2 says that.
That he has to run in the 10K?
That's
with each one of you.
6.2-A.
Oh, that he has to live on the,
Yeah.
so that's in the, that's right.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much. Yep.
It wasn't. I think the advertisement was within 25 miles, but I prefer to be here. And by the way, you have a lovely beach, and it's a lovely community. And it's going to be
makes-
back
yeah.
to where
It makes a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. I can't agree with you more.
All right. No other questions? Thanks, Andy. Bring it back to the council for any further discussion. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 23-36, Andrew Hyatt's employment agreement?
So moved.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. It was a tie to the runner there. We'll give the second to
Go ahead.
Councilor Woodson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously.
Welcome aboard,
Congratulations
Andy.
and welcome to the family.
Yay.
And Keith, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. or
This morning, I'm really not sure what's in the envelope. No, it was for travel for the last time.
Yeah,
but-
right, thank you very
And
much.
just for the public's interest, as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Town Manager, but the new town manager starts on May 1st, and then your contract, you will physically be here until May 15th to help with the
Or
transition.
30th, or June 15th, or,
We will have crossover, yes, yes. And I would also just like to say that, you know, one of my personal goals was to try to provide for a smooth transition, and that often doesn't happen in government, particularly in local government, where there's a transition of that authority. And I'm proud that we've found Andy, and I'm proud to be part of that peaceful transition of authority.
If I may, Mayor, I echo those words. It's very unusual. Usually you come in and whatever's happened has happened, and you just kind of pull the staff together. They've kind of, been damaged a little bit, but I think, what's happened here is a unique situation. Also, just as a reminder, with my son's impending wedding in June, that I'll be out, but we've made provisions in the contract for that as well, so.
Perfect. All right, we'll move on to the next administrative agenda, item B, RFQ-22-25-AD, ongoing miscellaneous professional services. Approve and authorize the town manager to execute contracts with the top-ranked firms under each category for ongoing miscellaneous professional services. Town manager, you want to just kind of give a brief overview for those that may not understand what you're looking at here?
Yeah, I don't have my notes here, but, see what my backup says. Give me a moment.
You
I've
know,
had
I don't-
enough of this
this is-
short-time attitude.
I don't see it, Amy, I don't see it in the town packet either.
If
That's why
I
I don't
may,
have it then.
this is the next step in the process that we have to follow through on pursuant to state law. When we procure certain types of professional services such as engineers, architects, et cetera, you have to place an RFQ. You then have to narrow down the list, and then you have to authorize the manager to enter into negotiations with the top-ranked candidates. And now we're at the point of actually authorizing the manager to execute the agreements that with the top 5 candidates in each category, engineers, architects, coastal engineering, surveying, all the disciplines that were part of the RFQ.
I understand, I'm just, in the packet, unless one came out that I missed after that, I don't have this in our, yeah, I'm trying to pull up, make sure there's, I just don't want to move forward with something that
Sure.
wasn't on the advertised packet.
Yeah. I distinctly remember seeing it in the approval queue, and there is a blue sheet, but
It did not make it onto the
did not
packet.
apparently make it onto.
So is it best, I
I
would
mean, we
assume we
can,
have
we
to
can
table
continue the
this.
matter and just put it on the next agenda if that's what you all feel more comfortable with. We're checking right now to see if it was part of the online version that was published.
Okay.
And
Well-
I don't see it. I see the packet ending with the town manager
Done,
contract.
Right,
Okay.
me too.
but she's checking to see, so. Well, the next thing is we'll table this and we'll come back to it. Next is final public comment. Is there anyone that chooses to speak under final public comment? Yes, sir. Terry, come on up.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, town manager. I'd like to take this
Please
moment,
say your name, though. sir.
Terry Prasad. I'd like to take this moment to thank you guys for all the job you've done over the last 6 months in getting our island put back together. As a citizen of the island, I can't tell you how relieved it is to see, the good job that Calder Golf has done in removing all the garbage. And, in my street, I couldn't even drive in for the first 2 months, and, we're able to get back to normal. In saying that, as a business owner, as you know, I own the Sunset Beach Grill, which was completely destroyed by Hurricane Ian. and we're trying to put our businesses back together so we can survive and move on. I come before you and ask you for us to try to resolve our differences in the legal matters that we have facing us in a global settlement. This is something I've been requesting for over a long time, and I think it's time that, for us to move on and to rebuild our town, we need to get our differences settled. And my attorney was supposed to be here today, but his flight got rerouted to Orlando, so he's in limbo trying to get here, and I don't think he's going to get here. That's why I waited so long to come before you. As you know, EN brings a lot of challenges to us, and having a significant piece in the Times Square, we need to work together as a team. And having these legal matters linger over our heads is not going to get us, to proceed to where we need to be. So what I've done is created, I don't have the legal or the settlement offer that my attorney compiled because he's not here, of course. We will be sending that to the town attorney. But I just have a brief letter that I want to give to each one of you so you can kind of see what we're proposing, so we can get this thing resolved and move on. So with that, I'm going to just...
I just want to make sure, John, can he because it's legal, can he hand that to us, or does it have to go to you, or just? No, I just want to make sure.
He can provide it to you all.
Okay.
But as he indicated, full disclosure, neither I nor anyone on the town side has seen this.
Okay.
As you know, on a number of occasions, we have, through outside counsel, because we are represented by outside counsel in some of this litigation, we have requested a formal written settlement proposal, and we've yet to receive it as of this morning.
All right.
So this is the
Good.
first I've seen of this.
Okay. Thanks for bringing us all one. It's harder to share. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
I'll take it. I'll put it in the stack I have for him. Thank you, Terry.
Again, this is just a brief letter. The attorney will be drafting the settlement and sending that over to you guys, or he has it drafted, or else he'll be sending it over to you, hopefully before the shade session this afternoon. But again, if you guys feel that there's anything that you need to add or subtract, we're all ears. At the end of the day, it's the council and myself that has to work it out. We just go through the attorneys. So if you guys can, give us any input that you want, how you want to settle, the attorneys will draft it up accordingly.
All right.
All right?
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
I don't see it on the online version. Through the software, it says it should be there, but online it's not there, so.
Okay, we'll finish this, and then we'll go back to it. Anyone else have any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, and we'll go back to administrative agenda B. I don't know, I think just because it hasn't been shown up on there, just in case someone wants to speak on it, I'd feel more comfortable tabling to the next meeting, but any of my fellow counselors have any input on that?
I would agree, Mayor, just in this sense of transparency.
I agree and apologize for the error. And you'll do better.
Any other comment on that, or is there any do I have to make a motion for that, John?
Yes,
Okay.
Table.
I mean, we'll just, as staff, we're pulling item 12B.
Okay, so no motion necessary.
No.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to the town manager items.
Okay, I do have those. Just a quick update, and I think I've been keeping you briefed up on some of the progress, but Town Hall, we expect that to, demolition to begin at Town Hall probably with the next week or two. The permit has actually been issued. We paid for the permit. I'll throw that in there. It's state contractor, so it is in iandebris.com. And we're just waiting on the final approval to come off FEMA's desk right now. We have all of our insurance and engineering approvals, the structural approvals for the demolition of that. So anyway, couple of weeks, town hall should be coming down. Bayside will be preparing a solicitation for reconstruction of Bayside here within the next couple of weeks also, so that should be out on the street. That'll be out for 30 days, and then the selection of a contractor for that, so that'll be late May, June for Bayside to commence. Bay Oaks is still in negotiation, as far as I know, with the contract with Gleason on there. There's been one issue with regards to liquidated damages, I think.
Yeah, if I might add, we, after we awarded the contract to Gleason, after several go-arounds, and the proposed contract being attached to the RFP, so Gleason knew what they were looking at and anticipating entering into an agreement. They've now come back to us and asked us to modify the contract to the issue of liquidated damages, and I believe there's one other item, at this point in time, absent the town council directing us differently, staff's view of this issue is that they knew of what the contract terms and conditions were. It was attached to the contract, and there's not a strong inclination, at least on my behalf, unless the town manager states otherwise, or Mr. Hyatt states otherwise as he joins us in another 2 weeks. It is what it is, and we're going to leave it as is.
So I will tell you, I'm not in favor of making any changes. You said it was there beforehand. What is the course of action if the town council gives you direction to stay the course that you're on?
We would notify Gleason that we're not agreeing to any changes to the contract, and to execute and to proceed with the work.
And is there a time frame as to when they can decide if they want to sign the contract or not? And if they decide not to, what's the next course?
At this point in time, under our code, and I would, under general law, I would tell you that it's my view that they are legally obligated to sign the contract and to pursue the project in accordance with that contract. They would, if they renege, they would, forfeit their bid bond that they posted, and we would bring that back to you and seek direction, which could include pursuing a breach of contract action against Gleason. It's not where we want to be. It's not where I think we'll end up.
Right.
But to the manager's point, it's prudent to bring it to your attention.
And John, let me ask, if we do fail to negotiate, can we go to the number 2 bidder? Would that require separate council action? Or would we have to resolicit?
The Gleason would have to, we would, what would happen is we would advise Gleason that we're not making any changes. They would theoretically say, well, then we're not going to enter into the contract, and then we would inform the council and that we're moving on to bidder rank number 2, and entering into an agreement with them, which ironically is the company that filed the latest bid protest on the same project. So that's why I would anticipate that we'll be able to resolve things. It's my hope.
I've stated my position on this, but my fellow councilors want to weigh in so that they have clear direction as to where to move forward with this contract. Council Woodson, go ahead. You look like you're ready to say something.
I absolutely would keep what we negotiated, what they accepted, and not even think about looking at this addition.
Councilor Veach?
Yeah, I concur. They are obligated to the contract. If they had a real compelling reason, I would listen to it, but I haven't heard anything.
Councilor King?
It's disappointing to hear this because it was 2 weeks ago that this same people were wanting the keys to the building immediately. So I'd say stick to where we are.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
I thought you said it very well, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we have the direction.
Thank you.
Thank you for that guidance. And then also with all the rain, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of questions about stormwater. Our stormwater project is about 50% complete of clearing the drains. And we would hope to finish that by the end of May and be complete with that. We do expect to have to conduct a second round after that because as the county comes in with the Estero Boulevard, it'll probably force more sand into our stormwater system and would have to come through with a second run, similar to how Crowder Gulf is with the debris, making multiple runs down the road. So, but anyway, we're about 45% or about 50% done, and we expect to be finished 100% by the end of May, early June.
So
Go ahead.
this is FEMA reimbursable?
The stormwater?
Yeah.
Yes,
And that includes, if you get sand from the county, that'll still be reimbursable from FEMA?
yes.
How is it coming in as far as budget-wise from what they originally gave us with the contract? I don't remember.
Put a lifeline on that one too.
You could get back, I mean,
I'll
if
get
it's
you that.
covered by FEMA, I'm assuming if we have to make adjustments, we can.
It is, I will send that information to you. I have it here. Well, here we go. It's about 50,000 linear feet. We're about 25,000 linear feet done. It's a $489,000 project, and we are pretty much right on budget, right halfway.
Okay, great, thanks. Anything else?
That's all. Thank you.
Town attorney items.
Yes, sir. A couple of items to, along the lines of the manager's report to update you on number of items as well as to let the public know. As I indicated over the weekend, we have been informed that the Adam LaCroix litigation, which is commonly known as the preacher dispute at Times Square, has been resolved amicably between the town through its insurance carrier and Mr. LaCroix. Other things that we're getting prepared for and to move forward in that case, including depositions and other matters, will no longer be required, and for all intents and purposes, that litigation is over. Another update.
John,
Yes, sir.
before you go on, just, are you allowed to say what the settlement was? Or is that
Sure.
privileged?
As you may recall, Mr. LaCroix initially alleged that the town's sign regulations, for which he was cited for having violated by code enforcement personnel, didn't comply with the constitutional mandates pronounced by the U.S. Supreme Court over the last decade or so. Initially, we prevailed at the trial court and federal court. Mr. LaCroix appealed that to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal, and the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal overturned the trial court's decision. As a result, we adopted the new sign code that conformed to the constitutional requirements. And so essentially that mooted the litigation. But in the process, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal had ruled that Mr. LaCroix was entitled to reasonable attorney's fees. And so the League of Cities, our insurance carrier, agreed to pay those attorney's fees as part of that settlement. In exchange, Mr. LaCroix has dismissed all claims against the the town arising from that litigation.
So the dollar amount that was paid for by our policy with the League of Cities?
Yes, sir.
And do we know what that amount was?
I don't know it off the top of my head. I believe it was below $50,000, but I can't say that with certainty.
Is that public information?
Yes, we can get that and provide that information to you all if that's the desire of the council.
I'd be interested in seeing that. Thank you.
Second, as I've informed you all, there has been an appeal to the Beach Dune walkover matter involving the corporate entities owned by Mr. Kramer and Mr. Rude regarding the Beach Dune walkover matter. We have already reached out to opposing counsel, who communicated with staff as well as with the city clerk or town clerk's office for some public records requests, which were provided. Conversely, more importantly, I have been in communications with Mr. Kramer and Mr. Rude's attorneys, and we are coordinating the town's defense with them in that matter. And as soon as the court issues what's called a rule to show cause, then we'll begin that process in coordinating with them and working with them, and we will keep you posted as we move forward on that. Not so good news. We did receive a new claim against the city alleging an inverse condemnation claim regarding what appears to have been construction project of the town's stormwater improvements that may have damaged some private property. We are in the process of evaluating that claim. Again, it's been referred to the League of Cities, and they have informed us they are covering it, and they have assigned outside counsel. And so we're coordinating with outside counsel determining the background information to see whether or not there's any validity to the claim, see if, again, if there is, then to resolve the matter as soon as possible, rather than expending an extraordinary amount of time and money on attorney's fees and costs. Last but not least, I want to give a big shout out to this town council and to the community for their support with regard to the ongoing discussions between the town, and particularly myself, and the Lee County School Board regarding the proposed or draft interlocal agreement for the rebuild of Beach Elementary School. We are proceeding on that. We've been made some significant headway. I do have a conference call scheduled for tomorrow with the Lee County School Board's General Counsel to see if we can finalize the draft to then start vetting it and distributing it to you all to get your feedback. And we hope to be able to bring that document to this town council at your next meeting for approval. That's it, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for the town attorney?
I just have one. What is the latest update on the date that the board is going to make their decision on this school? Is it we're waiting on this piece of it and then or how's that working?
No, I believe that the school board meets once a month, as opposed to our 2 times. So they would be, it would go before the school board at their meeting of May. I think we're past the timeline for being able to get it on for the April agenda. I think maybe the school board's already had their meeting. I don't know what day it is, but the idea is to bring it back to both of our respective boards in the month of May for approval.
Any other questions for John?
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Council member items and reports. Councilor King, we'll start with you.
Oh, boy. I guess just, I'm not sure where to go with this because Councilor Veach has mentioned it quite a few times, and seeing Terry Prasad in the audience today and hearing him talk, Times Square obviously is a very big, important issue, probably the heartbeat of the town. Where are we on forming something to work with the town businesses and the county to try and move forward as soon as possible with the.
And I'll just tell you, that as part of the Resilient Lee group, I met with some of the contractors that are working that, and this is the one that's got this block grant that's through HUD, and other kind of funds. And one thing that was recommended is that we come up with a master plan that not only includes the downtown area, but even includes San Carlos Island. And this comes on, there's a lot of chance for economic redevelopment and some workforce housing on San Carlos Island. And with the Times Square, we really can't do much without working with the county on that. So the idea is to work with the county for this bigger property, come up with some kind of master plan, and have that as part of the Resilient Lee grant application.
And I'll add to that, I'm the liaison from the town to the Horizon Council. I made it, Dan. And Commissioner Sandelli pulled me aside after the meeting, talking about just this, his concerns with Times Square and partnering and that type of thing. And he brought up ULI, which is the Urban Land Institute for Planning. And he and Lee County would really like to push forward with that along with Fort Myers Beach, and ask that I bring that up in our next meeting and talk through that and whatever we need to do to make this robust and get this planning moving forward. And he's basically endorsing it.
Yeah, I've had several conversations with Commissioner Sandy about this. We've actually met with the staff from the county. They actually came down and met with Chris and I. We walked Times Square, kind of just threw ideas out of what, 10,000-foot visioning, kind of, if you will. Everyone seemed to kind of be on the same page and agreed to try to move forward with the initial visioning, if you will, of Times Square with Urban Land Institute. I believe Commissioner Sandelli got the okay to go ahead and interact with them. So he and I talk about this quite often. So it is kind of moving forward. Not exactly sure the best way. Obviously, there's the county, the town, and the business owners in Times Square that, it's a unique dynamic that 3 people are involved. So finding out what the county is interested in doing with their parcels, how we want our part of that piece of pie to work, is a first step. And then we can obviously work with the businesses to see how it works. At the end of the day, they're the ones that have to spend the money to build their buildings or build what they have to do there. So those talks are going on. He did reach out to the ULI. I have not heard from them yet, but I assume that I probably will this week. And between you and I'm sure, and the town staff will be able to give updates as we get them.
Would this be, if we do engage it with this company, could we maybe have that as part of a management and planning item? To really
Yeah.
sit and talk about it? Because, you're talking, Karen's talking, I'm talking, but to get,
Insane.
get it all together, get all the ducks in a row
so,
here.
so ULI actually, a few months back, actually sent something that was kind of an 10,000-foot view that they did just as a visioning thing, talking about those nodes kind of that goes down San Carlos Boulevard, but it was just a very, very high elevation.
That's the one that had the ferry coming from,
No, this didn't have anything with a ferry, but it was essentially looking at parts of the area that could get changed around, like we'd already been talking about for quite a while with these nodes. So they would be essentially, my understanding is they would be essentially a initial, just kind of get the here's how they kind of work is they give you some sort of visioning, and here's, based on what you're telling us, this is what we think it could look like. Then you get that out to the public and the businesses, then they look at it, they're like, I like that, hate that, then they redo it. They wouldn't be they would want to be separate so that if it ever comes to the point, or when it comes to the point, or it goes for RFP or RFQ, that they can still be part of the bid. So if they're doing the visioning, my understanding is that they can't be part of the bid, but there's a separate company. So they're trying to work through all that. But essentially, they'll try to get renderings out based on conversations from our staff, from the county staff, to what the pier, what everything could kind of look like there. Then you could sit down and have an MMP meeting or a charrette of some sort with the public and say, what do you like, what you don't like? They will adjust it, go from there, and kind of funnel it back down to it gets to a point where it works for everyone.
and I will put a plug in, I know it's not my item yet, but May 4th, 6 to 8 here, PM, after the MMP meeting is going to be the Resilient Lee Town Hall, and these are the kind of things that if you have an input, you come to, and you'll have ears to listen to what your ideas are.
Yeah.
In our management meeting with the county regarding the CDBG-DR funds, that Hagerty gave us a good presentation on that, and I discussed with Hagerty at that time, can they come and present to us, and I think M&P might be an excellent opportunity for them to do that, but I wasn't sure if that's been discussed at the committee level or not yet, to invite them here and support it at that level versus just me talking to Hagerty and saying, hey, come on down. But I think that's an excellent briefing that they could provide on maybe how to coalesce these activities, because we're talking about ULI and we're doing our own comp plan revisions, and there's Times Square, the needs for some visioning there. So it's kind of disparate, and I feel like the need to draw these together. And FEMA actually has a non-disaster support function that will help do that, and they did it for Mexico Beach also, where they bring in all those different interests and needs, such as, do we need to change our comprehensive plan to meet any of these goals? And they suggested a peer-to-peer process, which would be us, meeting with the county, meeting even with Mexico Beach of how did you get your job done there to participate. So I invited FEMA to also attend the May 4th MMP just to sort of start listening to what we need and what directions we're going.
John? you
Can
got more?
I have a
yeah.
question for Counselor Veach? Did you just go through your items?
No, we're still in
Mr.
Kings.
Pine, I'm sorry.
You just asked such a good question. that
Well,
it just
well,
went
while
to
we're
the-
on this issue, I just didn't want to forget Counselor Veach. On the meeting on the 4th, from 6 to 8 p.m. At Diamond Head, the Resiliency Committee, what is it that you're looking for? Do you encourage the council? I know it's open to the public to take public input. Will it be like the NDOT meeting on the North Bridge, where you would want counselors to also come in and just share thoughts and concerns, or how do you envision this thing happening?
This is all set up by the Resilient League Group, but this is supposed to be an outreach program for people, and I think it's always good to have elected officials there. So if people want someone to talk to about their ideas, that they're talking to a decision maker.
But do you want us to also share comments with the committee then as well? I mean, in other words, come to the mic and share comments with the Resiliency Committee that will be here on the 4th?
I probably wouldn't. It's a good question. I don't really consider. I don't know if this is considered a public meeting.
We could advertise
Well, that
that
was
there'll
just
be more
good-
than two.
That was just going to go to the advertising piece, because
Yeah.
just like we got in trouble for all being at the school district, even though it was a publicly noticed meeting. I think if we could have that publicly noticed for the 4th, that way if we decide to make remarks, there's no issues.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, John.
That's fine.
Before we move-
I'm sorry.
I just want to clarify with John that is something that can be done. As long as it's clarified or it's advertised as a public meeting, that potentially more than one council member will be present.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry, John. Go ahead.
No,
Other John.
I've lost where I was going.
Don't it, John? You're up.
Thank you for the clarifications on all this. It's obviously a very important matter. I do support the coordination of the efforts and keep us involved or up to date calendar-wise and things like that. That would be fantastic. And that's all I have.
Council Woodson.
Um,
Going back.
Couple things, yeah, backwards. Just a couple things. So Jeff and I have been talking about possibly a 4th of July parade. So that historically has been something that Bay Oaks has coordinated and put together, and they have the template for it. And I am just asking from a council input, I mean, is this something that we're interested in doing? I know we can't have the fireworks unless somebody wants to donate $100,000 for us. But is this something that we as a town would be interested in to kick off or some of the midsummer events and keep people active?
I would be interested in putting it at least on an M&P for discussion. For me, I'd want to kind of see where Estero Boulevard is, as we heard today. There's a lot of concrete out there. But I'd be open to the discussion at an M&P.
That'd be tough for kids to dig candy out of concrete blocks.
We could maybe get the sand off the sidewalks too again. So could we put that on the agenda for the May 4th M&P? Because we can't probably go much later than that, right, Jeff? Because we need to really coordinate and have people sign up and do their floats and all that type of thing, but
I'm good with
it's a
adding
big
that to
deal.
the agenda for the May 4th MMP.
And if you're okay with it, Councilor Woodson, when you come to talk at the M&P at that, if you could have all the costs associated with it from previous parades as to what the expense to the town's going to be.
Good idea, okay. One other thing, so I mentioned that the whale opening, so as positive as it was, we had a little hiccup with parking because there are no parking signs along, there are not any parking signs along Palermo, and people were parking on both sides of the street, which negated any kind of fire truck or anything being able. So a huge shout out to our beach patrol. I mean, I cannot remember his name, the young guy, he's been with us like 7 years. Anyway, he was great. I mean, he stood around, he was like trying to get people to notice him, come out, move your car, do all that kind of thing. He did not issue any tickets or anything like that, but we just had to clear the one side of the street. But it just made me think, we got to get signs out at least on one side of the street. Now that they're open, I think they're open now starting Wednesday through Sunday. So we need to have some clarification for people so they don't get ticketed.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Counselor Veach?
Okay, yes, so going back to the Resilient Lee, the other thing that, because I think my understanding, and I'm still kind of trying to catch up on all this, is that we have to put projects into a portal. And that portal, I think they really want that to be vetted through council. So I've come up with some workforce housing proposals around the island. So I'd like to bring that in front of council, maybe for the M&P, just to be able to start discussion about where we may be able to do workforce housing if we get the funding through this CDBG.DR grant.
You know, I was curious about this. I'm assuming they haven't gotten the federal registry yet for that as to what's going to be eligible and what's not eligible yet, or how it's going to be eligible. I think that's supposed to come out next month.
Yeah, I don't have the date in mind, but you're right. The
In
Federal
which,
Register kicks it off.
in which I think that they have to then provide an action plan to the federal government to be able to show what they're going to do with those funds. You said you had a meeting with Haggerty already with
We
with the
met
group?
the town managers and county management met, and Haggerty gave us a presentation on it, and that's what I had heard was an action plan, but at that meeting, they talked about the portal and that the portal is the appropriate place for us to input projects. So I don't know if we need an action plan and then put them into the portal, or if we just council just agrees on projects to then go into the portal.
Could we do an action plan? I mean, our Tidal Basin has a list of all of the stuff that we have. Can we create an action plan to then bring to the council to look at? Then it would funnel in what goes into that portal? Just trying
And
to figure out.
I did enter some stuff in, I think the first instance is fairly casual, but I entered in some things into the portal that, like you said, were in the spreadsheet of things that we're already working on, and including things that have matches and whatnot. I also, I've been to one of these meetings, but also met with a couple of the contractors, and they were also, that we know some of the parameters of this, and part of it is 75% is supposed to go for the benefit of low and moderate income. That some say that can be modified, some say it's extremely difficult and takes years. And the other is through HUD, so a lot of it is very focused on housing, as is Kevin Rain, the chair. So, I think it's important for us just to make sure we put whatever it is out there that we think we may want to get funding for, and it's not really a commitment to do it, but it's a way to make sure we don't miss out on the funding.
And we do have a list of, I think that was the spreadsheet you referenced, of unfunded projects.
Well,
We have a list of those.
I'm a little concerned. So anybody can essentially just import into this porthole of ideas that they have?
They sent me the email since I'm on the committee.
So you're the one that's going to be importing all the ideas, or is it
Well,
staff
I
members?
assume this is going to have some staff support.
I'm just trying to figure out what the process is. Like you said, you
Well-
were in the, I wasn't in the last meeting, so. I
And I'm
wasn't sure.
trying to figure it out too, because I've been in one meeting
I-
and know what the process is.
I
And they
guess-
didn't mention the, council vetting when I talked to them before. But then last time they did. So we need to come up with some kind of way to make sure we just get our projects in the queue. So because if we don't put them in, I assume we're not going to get any money for them.
No, I would feel more comfortable having, I know that our action plan isn't the one that's going to be sent in, it's going to be the counties, because they're the ones that are distributing the funds, or the funds are funneling through them. But having some sort of plan in place to be able to input, instead of just throwing ideas out there and putting them in just to put them in there, makes a little more sense to me.
It does, and my takeaway from that meeting was that anyone can input into the portal, but that doesn't seem very manageable to me, so I can verify that.
Yeah, and I know there's like nonprofits and things that are also,
Right.
a party to this. So back to the point then, if it's okay, can we talk about this on May 4th at the M&P, so at least we can start the conversation about what we're going to do, how we're going to go forward with this?
Sure. Is it possible, Keith, to have some sort of broad action plan, I guess, if you want to use that word, to kind of work from?
Certainly, yes.
Okay.
And it can start with that spreadsheet, and we can massage from there.
It's your item, Counselor Veach. I just want to make sure you're
Yeah.
okay with that.
And okay, and I've already passed some things on to Keith, and I'll, some other opportunities that come up for workforce housing, then I'll put on the list, so we have some targets for that.
What else you got?
Oh, I got some other stuff here. We also talked about, and there seemed to be interest in creating a marina zoning district, because there were some things about that we may be able to, a way to maybe hopefully preserve marinas, but allow them some redevelopment. I wonder if there's interest to put that in an M&P, just to start talking about what that would look like. Maybe the staff could bring us some examples of marina zoning districts. So as people rebuild, we have that in place.
I thought that was good.
Yeah, well, I think we talked about that a little bit and tried to, did we direct staff to look at, is it more practical to create a marine district or just incorporate the surrounding districts' entitlements and restrictions into what they're already zoned? I thought that was kind of how we tried to figure out how we could do that without having to adjust the comp plan, maybe through the land development code, to incorporate the density and the floor area ratio and all that into what they're currently zoned.
I thought that was the direction that was given to Sarah and Eddie at that last review of all of the comp plan.
And I guess the question is, both from a timing standpoint, if we're making this part of the comp plan changes, I'm a little leery of pushing this too far down the road, because if people are looking to develop now, it'd be nice to give them some direction.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we don't certainly want to be the holdup, but just making decisions and moving forward makes the most sense, and maybe we can go back and look at, I believe it was in the joint meeting we had with the LPA that we specifically talked about the marine zoning.
I actually have notes here. The direction was marina districts, reduce node areas and separate, remove women's club and mosquito, maintain existing fire, remove bay beach. That's what my notes say for the direction that was given to them.
So maybe we could just get an update from
Right.
Sarah and staff as to where
Yep.
we're.
And also, staff has brought to me a couple situations where our land development code doesn't really fit into the redevelopment direction that, some of our developments are asking for. So we'd like to do some LDC changes also with the marina construction and zoning.
What else you got?
Okay, the other thing is, as Steve mentioned for Murph, maybe put the water ordinance on a future agenda or M&P to discuss. I know they have a model ordinance, and I think we went through and reviewed it, and it's nothing earth-shattering, just a matter of codifying what I think we're doing anyway, as far as water restriction days. If there's consensus to put that on a future agenda,
I'm okay with that.
okay. The talk we had about the upper lateral sewer inspection, when a house is rebuilt, is that something that people are interested in exploring?
You're talking about what the town manager referred to as far as rebuilding a house and having to have that inspected?
Yeah, he mentioned about when it's
Sold.
sold to have it
When sold.
inspected, but I think that since so many people are rebuilding now,
Sure.
and it kind of makes sense to get that inspected before you put a new house on an old sewer line.
Yeah, I guess it makes, I mean, if you're building a new house, it only makes sense to redo the plumbing if you're already at bare ground, but I'd be okay with the discussion.
Okay. Most of the things have been covered. I think if we do a tree giveaway, maybe if we don't have the usual funding in line, I think there's probably ways we can get funding, maybe raise money for that, to move ahead. And the last thing and this is something that, because of going to the post office a lot more than we usually do, Caroline Street right away seems really, really narrow. And I looked on the LIPA site, and it's like supposed to be, I think, 25 feet wide. But you go down that thing, and it seems like it's 10 feet wide. I wonder if we can maybe put some staff on trying to figure out where that right of way went to and make that a more usable street.
That's debris, too.
It was like that before the storm though, too.
Maybe that's something we could work with the chief, fire chief on.
Sure.
I mean, they're the ones that really need that clearance for safety issues, so maybe they can work with us to identify if that's too narrow.
Yeah, I mean, part of it just probably more comes down to doing a survey and figuring out where the encroachment is. Because it might be something as simple as just, plants that have grown into the right of way. And I think that's pretty much it for me.
All right. Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Well, now that I'm at the tail end, most of my items have been covered, which is great. And I wanted to add just a little color slash history, given the fact that the next time we meet, we may no longer have a town hall. It may be demolished. I did a little interview yesterday with our first mayor, Anita Saracita, and she tells me that we moved into the town hall building on the second floor in 1996. Town was incorporated in 1995, and its first few meetings were in various churches around the island until they found that space on the second floor of the Bank America building. It was Bank America at the time. The first floor was vacant, and the bank had some challenges leasing that space or didn't want to lease that space, so the town just moved into the second floor, actually had our town council meetings up there on the second floor in that little communal area, if you will. And then in 2014, the building was acquired by the town, and I think she was stretching her memory, but for a cost of $1.1 million. And the town then moved into had the first floor and the second floor to some extent redesigned to incorporate the town hall responsibilities and duties, and that was done, and they moved in. A mural was commissioned, which is the Arches mural by the artist is still living and still in Southwest Florida. Her name is Jan Ellen Atelski, and she did the Arches mural, which I saw the other day. It's unfortunately, there was some discussion of trying to save the mural, or even at the minimum, cutting it up into small squares that people could keep as keepsakes. But the mold is pretty bad in there, and it's kind of on a drywall type material. And even though the mural looks decent, the material that it's painted on is in pretty rough shape. But that artist is still around. If we decide at some point to have another type of mural commission, she's available. The front door of the bank was closed off at that time as well, and that's why folks were coming in the side. And one of the questions I get a lot, whatever happened to the safe in the bank? And there was discussion to save the safe, but it was so large that they made a determination to have the safe removed when the town occupied the first floor of the building. I would make one other interesting observation. None of the current 5 town councilors were sworn in this building. The first 5, of course, or first 3, Councilor Veach and the mayor and myself were sworn in remotely because of the COVID dynamic. And then obviously our 2 newest councilors were sworn in after the town hall was severely damaged. So a little background on our town hall, which may no longer be very soon. And just thought that might be of interest. That's all I've got. Thank you.
All right, very good history. I have just the one thing that I kind of wanted to bring up that I noticed this weekend that we're still having issues, and I've already talked to the town manager about it, but I wanted to bring it up to my fellow councilors to see if there was an interest to maybe revisit this parking app. I don't know how any other way to say it, but that it's a dumpster fire. I'd really like to have whoever the company is come in so that we can talk to them. We're still having issues with people who put in 4 hours that they want to stay, which is great. They're happy about that, but now they've decided maybe they want to stay another 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, but it's telling them that they can't in that zone where they're parked. So it's physically making them either run out of time, wait a certain amount of period, the 10 minutes or whatever it is, to be able to re-up in that zone. And sometimes you can't even do it then. You have to actually physically move to another parking spot to be able to do it. In our discussions that I talked about earlier with the county officials that were down here, they're on board with us working together to get the same app so that there's not 3 different places you have to go to to park if you're coming to Lynn Hall Park or you're coming to, you know, use our spots or whatever, but it's just, it shouldn't be that difficult. Software nowadays can be changed in a matter of seconds, and it seems like we're still having issues with something that, I don't think we need to be receiving emails over of parking things that, this software company could very easily fix. And if they can't fix it, then we'll find someone who can do it. But if anybody else is okay with trying to get staff to get them in here to answer some of our questions, and maybe the constituents can then come out and let them know how their product is functioning.
I'd be interested to have this staff give us a comparison of what we're using now and what the county's using if they're different.
Sure. It's just frustrating to me that we constantly get calls and emails about people that are coming down here to support our community, and they're having issues, you know, they're spending their time down here trying to figure out an app that should be very, very simple and very, very easy to use. Especially if you just want to, I mean, to me, it's as simple as when you get that alert, it should pop a window up that says you've got 10 minutes or 15 minutes left. Do you want to extend your time? Yes or no? And then it takes you here. I mean, it's not that difficult to do. It's pretty simple. So, but again, it still hasn't been done. And as of this Saturday, as a matter of fact, Ed sitting in, he happened to have that issue. It came up again. He was the second one of the day that I'd talked to that had that problem. So we need to take a look at it, in my opinion, and get it corrected before we get busy again.
Got it.
Well, and I'm totally in agreement, especially now since we've approved the fees and we've hiked the parking fee to $77. So now, even before this was the time, but now is certainly the time.
Okay, that's all I've got, unless someone else has any. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Just want to remind the council members that we do have a series of executive shade meetings starting at 1 o'clock this
I
afternoon.
was just going to ask you if that was still on, so thank
sir.
you for reminding me.
And John, are you allowed, just so the public can hear, I know that public, it's a shade meeting, but can you say what the shade meetings are, how they were noticed and what they involve?
Yes, the notice has been posted on our website. They involve 3 matters that we've requested the opportunity to meet with you in outside the sunshine. One in the first case involves the Jamison versus Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida case, which is an inverse condemnation claim. The second and third items both involve Prasad Properties Investments versus Town of Fort Myers Beach. One is the federal litigation pertaining to the sale of alcohol at the Sunset Grill, and the other one is regarding the implementation of the settlement agreement in the commonly referred to as the Junkanoo case, which involves the 2 homes on Estero that were adjacent to what used to be the location of the Junkanoo restaurant.
Thank you.
And these are, this is just for us. Their attorneys are not going to be here for this. This is,
That is correct. This is outside the sunshine. The people who can attend is limited to those who were initially listed, and that basically is town council, town manager, court reporter, and our council, including myself and our outside counsel.
and the only topics we're allowed to discuss in the shade meeting is related to these incidents.
The settlement of the disputes and litigation costs related to the ongoing cases, limitation.
All right, thanks for the update, John. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 11:30.